Is your boat lift winch box making a crunching, grinding sound? Is it hard to crank, or does it move at all? Chances are you've got some problems inside that cover. You're probably thinking, how am I going to get somebody out here to fix this? How long am I going to be without my boat lift? My boat is on the lift and I can't get it down. All I want to do is relax and go boating. Once again, your pal Tim is here. Yep, that's me. To get you out of that jam. Breathe easy, grab a beverage, and gather around the campfire for reading out of the book that has changed so many lives. No, it's not gonna save your marriage or help you with that awkward conversation with your kids, but it might just get you back on the water in no time. If your Craftlander winch box has stopped working or has started to make funny noises, you may have a slipped wedge inside of the winch box. To find out what your issue may be, simply loosen the two screws holding the cover on, here, and slip the cover off. The wedge is located on the side of the winch drum and is designed to hold the end of your winch cable. All Craftlander vertical boat lifts came with this wedge design up through the 2019 model year. If you purchase your boat new in 2020 or later, then most likely you'll have the new revised pinch bolt system. The wedge system was popular with Craftlander because it allowed the cable to slip if the boat lift was ever wound up backwards. This helped prevent catastrophic damage to the winch. This is a common operator error and is most likely the cause of a slipped wedge. While a slipped wedge will protect your boat lift from serious damage, it will also render your boat lift useless until the problem is addressed. It can also escalate into further problems if the operator continues to try to use the lift in this condition. The tail of the winch cable can become entangled in the gears of the winch and end up looking like this. Or, worse yet, you can break a chain in the process, which will always require a service call and more parts. So let's focus on the cause for a second before we get into the repair. I actually am statistically more likely to grow my hair back to how it was when I was 16 than it is to have a slipped wedge that was not from winding your boat lift winch backwards. Let me be clear. You wound your winch up backwards. I'm not trying to be a know-it-all, but it's just the truth. Maybe it wasn't you. Maybe it was your kids, your neighbor, or your brother-in-law Jake. Man, I don't like that guy. Who keeps inviting him to these things anyway? No, what's really going on here is that somebody wound the winch backwards, and that's okay. It happens. It's easy to get confused in the hustle and bustle of boating and forget which way to crank your winch wheel. Wow, that sounds bad now that I say it out loud. Anywho, one of the most common signs of a backwards wound winch is the old concave retaining bolt washer. No, your lift didn't come this way. I know you might swear that it always looked like that, but let me assure you that this is not the case. When your winch was wound backwards, the culprit with the greasy mitts on the boat lift was committed to the idea that they couldn't possibly be doing anything wrong. When turning the winch wheel counterclockwise, the wheel will unthread itself from the input shaft of the winch, which in turn puts pressure on the retaining bolt washer. As the weight of the boat is applied through the winch, the washer will concave itself. Good thing this is there to sacrifice itself to the boating gods, or you'd be in for a big surprise. Either way, if you see this, you know what happened. The second sign of a reverse winding of your revolving recreational recovery device is the old cable cut a groove in the base plate move. This happens when your winch is wound backwards and the cable that used to feed up the backside of the drum is now on the front side of the drum. This allows the cable to make contact with the base plate of the winch, and it eventually cuts a groove like this into the plate. This is usually more of a cosmetic issue than anything else. This plate should eventually be replaced, but it's not usually an absolute necessary item to make your winch work. So now that we've learned about how this happened and some of the signs to look for, let's get our hands dirty. I strongly recommend a pair of gloves for this. You could be stupid like me and not wear them, but I'll wager you have a bit more common sense than that. The first thing we need to do is get the winch unwound. Use a screwdriver to guide the cable as you unwind the winch, which actually means you need to wind it up? Alright, let's assume you wound it backwards and things got jammed. If it jammed while going counterclockwise, which is backwards, then you will need to wind it clockwise, which is forward, to free it. Either way, just watch the cable feed in or out and crank it whichever way allows the cable to feed out of the winch. Feed the cable all the way out of the winch until it is completely removed from the winch box. Inspect the cable for damage. There is most likely going to be splinters along the cable, so be careful handling it. If the end of the cable is damaged, it will need to be trimmed. If you need to trim more than about 12 inches off of the end of the cable, you may still be able to use the cable temporarily, but be advised that the cable will probably need replacement in the future. Shortening your cable too much may lead to not having enough cable wraps on your winch drum. This could lead to a failure in the future. If your cable has a kink in it, this part doesn't necessarily need to be trimmed. This kink can straighten itself later. To trim the end of the cable, it is usually advisable to first wrap the part to be cut in electrical tape to prevent the end from springing open and causing difficulty later. A grinder with a cutoff wheel is the best method, but a hacksaw can be used. Now that the end of the cable is clean, it's time to rethread this thing. Locate the wedge. If you can't find it right away, look for it inside the box here. They love to drop out here. Or, if your lift was installed by us, we usually leave behind a spare wedge inside the box just for this instance. If your wedge has dropped into the water and a replacement can't be found, give us a call and we'll do our best to get you one the same day. Turn your winch wheel so that the cable opening on the side of the winch drum is located in this position. Feed the cable up the back side of the winch drum and through the side opening. Pull some length here to make it easy to work with. Route the end of the cable into the cable holder on the side of the drum. Make sure it seats itself all the way up in there. Pull some of the slack out of the cable, but leave a loop at the end. Place the wedge inside the loop and pull tight on the cable. Crank the winch wheel clockwise to start to take up the slack in the cable. Guide the cable neatly onto the drum until the slack is out of the cable. Once the carriage begins to pick up, you have verified that the winch wheel is being rotated in a clockwise manner. You're all set. Keep an eye on things while lifting your boat for the first time. It is advisable to keep people clear of the boat and the lift while doing this for the first time. If you did end up trimming your cable, have a dealer come out and inspect your work just to make sure it's safe. But for the meanwhile, just use your lift with some caution. Well, folks, I hope we helped you get back out on the water. If you don't feel confident in doing a repair like this, please call a professional. You may have to wait a while for them to show up, but it's much better knowing that the job is done right. Any questions you have, please contact us at 715-420-2442 or through our website at liftsanddocks.net. Today, I'll leave you with a full-length video of the cable threading process to help you better understand the procedure. Thanks for watching. Okay, so for those of you who want to know how to rethread the cable on a Craftlander boat lift, this is how it goes. You're going to start with your cable here. It's loose. You're going to bring it in the bottom of the winch box, bring it around the back of the winch drum, and out through the side opening of the side of the winch. It's important to have this housing positioned where it's at right now. If you have it rotated in any other position, it's going to be very difficult to get this job done. With the cable pulled out, a lot of slack pulled out, you're going to double it back in. Make sure the tip of the cable goes back in here, inside that housing. We're going to pull the cable, not all the way, just most of the way. Leave a little loop. We're going to grab our wedge with one finger, with one hand. I'm going to push it in there, hold it. I'm holding side pressure on this cable right now. And I'm going to pull the cable to tighten it up. Guide that in there, give it a good tug, and make sure it's secure. After that, crank your winch up as normal, and everything should be good.